So welcome, 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 our brilliant colleague, Megan. We so appreciate your consistent leadership and solidarity. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled, without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So Megan, could you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work?
Oh, thank you, Victor. I love your energy as you're starting today's conversation. I appreciate the chance to connect with you and to have this conversation. And I just love what you're bringing in terms of leadership to these important conversations. So my name is Megan Conway. I live near Ottawa, Ontario. I have two small children and a partner and a dog. And I live in the sort of in the country, Victor, but I'm currently working in a capacity as the CEO of Volunteer Canada. And so in that capacity, we're an organization that's really interested in advancing a volunteer movement in Canada that's inclusive, that's diverse, and that's really ready to meet the moment for the challenges that we have at this present time in the country and globally. So that's a little bit about me. I like to do things outdoors, Victor. It's finally spring here. There was snow on the ground in Eastern Ontario last week, and now it's like full on spring here, which is great.
That's incredible, and thank goodness the weather is getting better in different parts of the world and in Canada. So once again, I just appreciate the authenticity you bring to the work, and more importantly, you sharing your background with us. So my next question: what's inspiring you right now? What has you curious, or what's keeping you up at nights?
Those are such great questions. So what's inspiring me right now? Well, like in this very moment, I just have to say that next week, which is April the 14th to the 20th, is National Volunteer Week in Canada. And so as I think ahead to that, I get really inspired because it is an opportunity in the country to really celebrate and thank the millions of volunteers who show up in all sorts of different ways, small, big, in all the ways they can. This year's theme for National Volunteer Week is Every Moment Matters. And it really recognizes that we all have individual contributions to make and that those moments really contribute to bringing a bigger impact to the problems that we're facing into our communities, into our homes, into our neighborhoods. And so that's inspiring me right now. What am I curious about? I'm curious, I'm reflecting around questions around what's the social infrastructure needed to really advance volunteerism in the country. So one of my core beliefs, Victor, is that people solve problems. And so I think we have a lot of problems in this country. And so I'm curious about how we build the capacity for everyday individuals to sort of jump in and begin to solve complex problems, whether that be like how we're going to deal with the major climate crisis that we're facing, or how we're going to build communities that are more just and equitable. I'm curious about what are the systems that are needed to really advance that kind of thinking and that kind of collective work across the country and more broadly. And then I love the question, what's keeping me up at night? I'm really curious about how other leaders and others who are doing this work, there's times where you feel like there's lots of quick wins. And then there's times where it feels like it's like, oh, things are harder and it feels like a slog, So it's finding that balance and finding the ability to sustain oneself in this work, I feel like, Victor. And I'd love to understand how others are doing that. And I'm, just curious about that because it can feel like there's a lot of work to get done at points in time, Victor, that needs, effort and thinking and resources, internal resources.
I couldn't agree more, and we're seeing it in so many different ecosystems and sectors. So once again, I appreciate your candor, and it's a perfect segue. What are some of the challenges and barriers you and your colleagues are facing, and what are some of the approaches you're taking to overcome some of these challenges and barriers?
Yeah, those are great questions. I think, in this moment, I think we're advancing as an organization. One of our big goals is around how do we build a very fresh and modern and current national volunteer action strategy. We haven't had one in the country since 1967, Victor, which is like a really long time ago, definitely since before I was born. But it was a time where that strategy really helped to build and support and enable all forms of volunteering and participation. And we feel like at this moment in time, it's a really great opportunity for the country as a whole to really reimagine what a new model and new infrastructure for volunteerism would look like. And so that's where we've been really advocating with our federal government colleagues for a national volunteer action strategy. So I would say that that's like a huge opportunity because we think it will have major benefits to individuals, to charitable sector organizations, to communities, to businesses, to the entire ecosystem of the country. But I would say the challenge is really how do we do this in a way that does no harm? I think there's a lot that needs to be thought through in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion, Victor. And I think there's an opportunity to really work with colleagues who have better grounded expertise to unpack and think through some of the barriers that have existed for a long time that prevent certain populations and certain individuals from really being involved in certain kinds of volunteering. And so I think that's a challenge for sure that we're organizationally trying to really get our heads around. And I think another challenge might just be like organizationally as an organization, we're really investing in building capacity to support our own organizational success. So the challenge might be like, how do we build this movement? But then how do we also sustain and build the organizational capacity to do that work, which is a shift for us in terms of how we have operated. So yeah, we don't have all the answers. We have good questions right now, Victor, and we're trying to figure them out and take a learning approach to the work.
Indeed, indeed. And I did not know that we did not have a strategy since the 1960s. That's tragic, but it also speaks to the fact that volunteerism has been on a steady decline for quite some time. And I really appreciate the fact that there is discussions around that lens of justice, access, inclusion, diversity, decolonization, and equity in terms of volunteerism, because definitely there is some privileges that some have versus others in terms of taking part in certain volunteer opportunities. So once again, I just really appreciate the introspection, the candor, and the authenticity. And it's a perfect segue to the next question. Do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work? I know you spoke about the federal strategy, but are there any other key priorities, or you can speak more about it?
Yeah, so I think that's great. We've just launched a new strategic plan called Meeting the Moment, and we're excited about it. And so there's lots of great work that's embedded in that. But the number one goal really as an organization is we're wanting to steward this national volunteer action strategy. So that is priority number one, Victor. And then there are 4 other really great connected priorities that are sitting within that plan. So one of which is that we want to build stronger and more resilient volunteering infrastructure across the country. And so that supports tools, resources, components of systems building that will strengthen the volunteering infrastructure from coast to coast to coast. So that's a big piece of the work. Connected to that, one of the things that we've heard in our recent work, and it was a bit of a shocker for me, but a lot of people have said to us that they do not know how to get involved in their community, that they do not know how to get connected or how to volunteer, which to me was a bit of a like what? So to that end, we are building out a suite of programs that we're calling Pathways to Participation. And so we're in the process of really reimagining how we might support program design that will support newcomers, youth, older adults to become more involved in volunteering. And we're going to be piloting some of those programs over the coming 3 or 4 years. So those are we're calling that Pathways to Participation. That's a big priority for us. And one of the components of that is really bringing together older adults and youth in an intergenerational volunteerism model that we're going to scale in different communities across the country. Because we also know that there's a big loneliness issue too, Victor. And so some of this will bring older adults back to community and giving their skills and their talent in new and exciting ways. So that's another big priority for us. We're really focused on how do we embed justice and access and inclusion work in all that we do. So, the diversity piece is really critical, and thinking about it from an equity lens and decolonizing some of the constructs around volunteering in the country. And we have to start with our own organization and think about our own practices and our own policies, and then the ways in which we can support and help to facilitate different models and different approaches that are more equity centered and led by diversity and equity seeking communities. I think is a very big opportunity for the organization, and working in partnership with those that have that expertise, I think is a key priority for us moving forward. And then last but not least, we have to build our organizational capacity. So we have to build the systems and the infrastructure and the team and the resources needed to let us advance all that work, Victor. So those are the four biggies, I would say, that we're looking at, and we're excited about them, and we were working through them, and it's great to dream, and then you get into the actual implementation of it, and you got to kind of get real and figure out how you're going to do it all. So that's the process we're in right now, and it's exciting, and and fun work for sure.
Yeah, and I think what's beautiful about strat planning process and being on the other side of it, it's you get to dream big, so you get to realign your why, and you get to have those conversations around that are really really interesting around the how and the what's. And I think that how and what space is such a beautiful space for organizations doing innovative and impactful work like yours. So once again, I just applaud the leadership of your team and all the things that you're going to accomplish. And I'm looking forward to collaborating on many of the things that you just mentioned. Very exciting times. So my second last question, what is your ultimate goal? And what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
I think for us, we just want to make it easier for people to get involved and participate in the country. Like it shouldn't be that hard for average Canadians, you know, or for people who live in this country to find ways to contribute their time and their talent and their skills. We want to increase and enhance the quality and the diversity and the accessibility of volunteering, and we want to help celebrate all the beautiful ways that people do contribute in community. So success for us just is helping to make this easier for folks and helping lift up the ways that people want to get involved. I think there's something catalytic about somebody wanting to solve a problem and figuring out ways we can really magnify and maximize that across the country is an exciting opportunity. And that would be what success would look like for us, you know, unleashing the power of individual volunteers to solve Canada's most complex problems and the global ones that we're facing. You know, like we're not an island, we have big problems, and we need to think about the systems and the infrastructure as people that we can contribute to solving them.
That's incredible. Thank you. So my last question, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and our viewers?
Oh, you know, that's a call to action, I would say, would be we would love folks to just check out volunteerstrategy.ca, which is our website that has some of the calls to action specific to the National Volunteer Action Strategy. We would love folks to check that out, and we would love people's feedback or their interest, like if they have questions. Ideally, we would love it if they took some of the materials on there and shared them with a local MP or a local MPP. That would be really awesome. And I think the other thing is we would love to learn about how folks across the country are doing work that's connected. We want to have a strong volunteering ecosystem in this country, and it's time to modernize it. And it's time to really make it to future-proof it for the next, you know, the next 50 years. We can't sit on the fact that we had a great strategy in 1967. We need to really think about the new models and the new mechanisms that are going to allow us to be a strong and connected and collaborative and cohesive community where everyone can contribute and belong. So that's our hope, Victor, and we love the chance to connect with you. I have to say, I love the picture behind you. I can't see what it is, so I'm curious what it is as we wrap up. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's kind of a very cool picture there, Victor. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, my wife has an incredible taste for many things, but a remarkable taste for art. So it's a picture of a deity from Yoruba culture. Yeah, and there's a sun behind her head. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Very cool.
Yeah, thank you. And as always at Setsi, we close this remarkable conversation by one giving thanks to you for all that you're doing for so many, and the fact that you have the foresight and the vision to be able to build out a national strategy for volunteers and to advance important work that's going to solve some of the most pervasive problems that we have globally, internationally, and obviously domestically, nationally in Canada. So I just appreciate all the work that you and your team are doing. And as always, we close the way we began by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Victor. We appreciate the work you're doing at Setsi and all the work that you're doing to support innovation and systems change too. Yeah.